Good day, Al. It's TurboDave here at Performance Corner. Going to talk about horsepower per liter. Modern day, modern day engines, you see a lot of big horsepower numbers. But when you break them down to horsepower per liter, it kind of shows you a little bit different side of what engines are. Now, saying that, as you add more cylinders, the engines tend to become less efficient. Unlike rotaries, that as you add more chambers or add more rotor housings, you gain efficiency. So you'll see a V8 and its counterpart in a four-cylinder. The four-cylinder usually makes more horsepower per liter, not overall horsepower, but per liter. So, for example, let's take a Toyota 2ZZ, 1.8 liter. It's making right around 105 horsepower per liter. When those engines are in the Lotus, they make a little bit more per liter. It's almost 30. It's almost another like 120 per liter, right about there. Nope. Yeah. Hold on. One. Whoa. Yeah, more than about 115, 120. The K series Honda engines, depending on which one you get, there's different series of those. Those are also right in there, around there, 110, 120 horsepower per liter. So you're looking at fairly efficient engine, and those engines from the early 2000s on. Those, even from the 90s, actually, the Honda engines and Toyota engines fall into the low emissions vehicles or ultra low emissions vehicles. So those are doing this all, mostly with technology, making horsepower, and as well as being ultra efficient. When you look at something like a even late model engine that's in a Z06, you're talking about a 650 horsepower engine supercharged. It's making, when you break it down per liter, it's making 105 horsepower per liter. They do the earlier ones had larger superchargers, the later ones had smaller superchargers, but just in general, we're looking at horsepower per liter. So you're talking about a 6.2 liter engine that is supercharged, that is emissions legal as far as we know. That's coming out of the factory that way. So 105 horsepower per liter, it's not bad, but it is supercharged. So it's almost, depending on which engine you look at, there's so many Chevy V8s, LS, LTs, and everything else. So and most of them are less than that, especially naturally aspirated. You're gonna have a very large engine making 400 horsepower or less, or a little bit more. But this is, generally speaking, we're keeping it at around 105 horsepower per liter. That takes a 6.2 liter with a supercharger to make that same horsepower per liter that a naturally aspirated engine and its counterpart does with technology. And speaking of technology, if you're looking at like the Honda does a iVTEC also, so it's a usually known for low speed type of efficiency, but when tuned right, depending on the turbo setup and everything else, and the tuning, you can get another 80 mid-range horsepower from the iVTEC. So these are just different ways of looking at engines. I always try to look at things as horsepower per liter. So it's a very tricky thing when you're looking at that. Those are all fairly modern engines, within the last 20 years old, or 20 years. As far like the Honda is a very relevant engine. The Chevy is even newer than that. So at least that one is. If you go back to the 60s, some of the highest output engines are from American V8s are 65 horsepower per liter. If you look at a Nissan U20 engine, which came in a Datsun Roadster, those ones were 75 horsepower per liter. So you're still looking at an NA car. And as funny as this may sound, that engine, the U20, was originally a forklift engine. So they took it from a forklift and they stuck it into a car, modified some things to it, gave it better aspiration. So it went from a downdraft small carburetor that just mostly idled to a set of side drafts, either duals, two singles into two, and then they had the Solex version. Solex is, if you know anything about carburetors, they became Mikuni later on. So if you look at Mikuni carburetors, if you don't know anything about side draft carburetors, Mikuni carburetors was took over Solex, or name change, I don't remember. But so, and then you change a cam and exhaust manifolds and all that type of stuff. A little bit different treatment for the engine because it's not idling around anymore, it's being used to drive. So you're talking about 150 horsepower 2-liter engine in 1966, 67. That's, for all intents and purposes, it's 1950s technology. I mean, because it had a life as a forklift engine prior to the Datsun Roadster. So these, when you look at that, it's kind of surprising. It's not an overall horsepower. Yes, overall horsepower, the V8s undoubtedly win as far as the amount of horsepower they put out. The amount of torque, especially, is going to be noticeably different, which I didn't get into, or not getting into here, because everybody always counts horsepower. But that's just to show you efficiency of an engine really is what it is. It's how efficient an engine is working and creating horsepower, not necessarily overall power, but the best way it can be done. And I think 4-cylinder is probably the best balance, or a straight 6, but we won't get into that. It's my favorite. So there you have it, horsepower per liter. Don't for whenever you build something or looking at something, just don't look at the overall horsepower. Look at how much it's making per liter, because that's efficiency. Is it making the best efficiency? And essentially, it goes along with the bang for our buck. If you see our bang for the buck videos, this horsepower per liter kind of goes along with that saying. It's maximizing the most efficiency per part, in this sense, per liter. And so everything you do to it should, in my opinion, should be with that in mind. To make it the best you can with what you got, and not the necessarily minimal amount of money, but for every dollar you put into it, you want to make the best horsepower. And if you're going to build an engine, make the best of it, no matter what it is, horsepower, torque, or whatnot. Thank you guys for watching the horsepower per liter. If you like what we do, please subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, leave it in the comment section below. And take care. Be safe. I'll see you soon. Bye.